Hey, welcome into the Husker247 Podcast. I'm Mike Schaefer, joined by Brian Christopherson, Michael Bruntz. Switched it up on you all a little bit this week with a Friday podcast, but BC was out in Sin City at the Big Ten Media Days. We didn't lose him forever. I think it was his first ever trip out to Las Vegas. He came back. He appears to be the same person. He's not a changed man. He didn't have to refinance his house because he had to cover some gambling debts or anything like that. So BC, was the trip out to Vegas everything you hoped it would be?
I need to go again sometime and actually
experience it.
Yeah, do something in Las Vegas. I didn't really get much done. I did. I'm not a gambler. At the very end, at 3:50 in the morning, when I was flying back in the airport, I went to a roulette machine and I won $95. So
there
that was
go.
It. Yeah,
very nice.
I hit on 17, and so there it was.
I think the sneaky thing about Vegas is it's become like a great food city. Did you have any good meals while you were there?
See, I'm going to disappoint. I had a pretty good beef pho. Okay. Correct pronunciation, right, Bruntz?
Yeah, you're good.
In Mandalay Bay in the hotel, that was good. And also, actually, the media day meal was not bad. The whole event, I didn't love it there.
Seems to be the common theme.
I'm kind of in the James Franklin club on that. It felt like it was just like, here you are on the third floor of this massive building. You're not going to see anything else around town about this event. No one cares. And I don't think it was very useful to the Big Ten. Not that I got James Franklin's point, though. The SEC knows how to play that thing up and make everyone think it's a big deal, even though it's not. And the Big Ten has not mastered that.
What'd you have for, what was the media meal there? A little shrimp cocktail? What'd you have?
Bringing in from Elmo's.
Well, the shrimp cocktail, they had a variety. I just had a portion, like a beef portion of, and they had nice sides and good vegetables. It was just well presented, and you had like 3 or 4 options for whatever your palate wanted that day. I thought they did well on that.
So they didn't make you walk 3 miles over to the other half of McCormick Place to eat a couple slices of ham and bread and some cheese and whatever else got thrown on there? Is better than that?
Yeah, this was better than that. The way they operated is fine. I just think the city they put it in, just
the locale was
a misfit, so there you go. But we got through it, and now we're working toward the real stuff here back home.
I want to, before we get too deep into this, I at least want to ask this question because both of you guys have covered enough media days at this point. How different does media day in 2025 feel for you than when you were covering media days in the Big 12 back in Texas, 18 years ago, 17 years ago, something like that?
I mean, go ahead, Browns.
I said I never actually covered one in the Big
really
12. Never did.
That's interesting.
Yeah, sorry. I'll yield my time.
No, it felt like a lot bigger deal. I think you guys would say even like the earlier Big Ten ones, there was just a larger presence.
When Nebraska didn't show up in suits?
Yeah, I actually wasn't at that one. That was the only one I missed because I was on a big planned vacation. But yeah, that was 2011. They showed up in polos and had to go change the next day. But it did feel like it meant more. You had more people there. It felt like a slim crowd to me this time in Las Vegas. And I wonder how much longer we're going to keep doing it, because for the most part, people go there to cover the very team they could do down the street. I'm not complaining about it. It's fine to get on an airplane and do something different, but I don't know what the longevity is, or maybe they're going to take some notes and say, hey, the SEC is still making this a thing that is successful and sort of building up their league. We just got to do it a little bit differently, or where we place it. Maybe that's going to happen. But I don't think 5 years from now, we're still going to have this. That would be my prediction.
What do you just think in general, Bruntz? So you can have
well, I mean, the SEC, like they do a better, like James Franklin's point more broadly, like in addition to it being stupid that it was in Vegas, which I agree with, by the way. The SEC does a much better job of like packaging those events, like the media days. They have coaches meetings, and I think they're in Destin every year. Those are like a big deal. And like news comes out of those things. And the Big Ten has like no comparable event, which is, I mean, it's fine, but it feels like there's very much, and this goes into Tony Petitti's comments and the playoff stuff and everything else in college sports right now. It just feels like right now the SEC wins the PR game. Part of it's ESPN. Like, I mean, the ESPN is very firmly in the corner of the SEC. I don't think there's any questioning that. But it just the Big Ten, I think, needs to be a little bit better at that than what they are. And it's tougher for the Big Ten because you're now C to C. Like, you're a huge conference. You've got geographic issues that come along with that. But if you're trying to win hearts and minds of people to, go to your playoff preferred method and all this other stuff, like, it feels like the Big Ten's just not doing a very good job of it right now.
Yeah, they're horrible at self-promotion. I mean, they're absolutely bad at promoting events and promoting their own stuff and promoting Big Ten teams and everything else. I mean, even as simple as just branding yourself as America's college football, because as you said, you're C to C, and making the SEC come off as a regionalized version of the college football game would be smart, but they never do anything like that. They're not, as a conference, they're so willing to just concede things or just be the Chicago version of themselves, and that's what they are. And they're just old stuffy and old money, and it's always going to be what it is. Like, they get their ass kicked in this stuff. Like, they're just bad at it in every way, shape, and form. And some of it absolutely is ESPN, and some of it is they have no imagination and no ability to promote anything or no willingness to go outside the box. And then when they do, is to go to Las Vegas and be at the Mandalay Bay and have no one care. Like, it's just dumbfounding that a conference that has that much money and that much brain power and that many people working for it can't even organize an event to celebrate itself, have no ability to build up the atmosphere and the public relations of it or take advantage of it. It's just dumbfounding to me. I mean, if they weren't having a ton of success on the field lately with 2 national titles, it would be a little bit concerning how far out the barn, the SEC is relative to where the Big Ten is, and just winning hearts and minds, like you said. And none of this should matter as much as it does, but in the politicking that is college football, it absolutely does. I mean, it's what allows people to talk themselves into Indiana not being deserving when 9-3 Alabama couldn't even beat teams that Indiana probably would have beat. Like, and that matters when we're discussing who's going to get into the college football playoffs. So at some point, I hope that Tony Petitti takes a long self look at what the Big Ten has been and tries to move away from that. I'm not saying it needs to be a clown show. It doesn't have to be full of super fans or anything like that. But if you're going to have an event that's designed to make people care about you, you probably need to do a lot more than what this week was. And it needs a structure that makes people care. I mean, remember when the big thing was the Big Ten luncheon and all they cared about was their luncheon and their speakers and the corporate donors for that? I mean, so they're a little bit past that at this point, but they have to find some reason to make it matter. Like BC said, I mean, just pull the plug on it. Have like a video conference day where all the coaches are available, or have all the head coaches together, and then you do something with players by, stream, because otherwise it really carries no value.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is I was surprised they didn't hit harder on. I know the playoff thing might get buried for a little bit, and maybe we're going to be status quo with what we have for a while. But I felt like maybe they should have been on attack mode with their format idea more than they were, the 4-4-2-2-1 or however they wanted to frame it, because I actually really, but that's one thing I do feel strongly about. I feel like the Big Ten has a much better idea than everybody else, because I think it would be more like an NFL system. But I think the 5+11 sounds better to the public because you can frame it like, oh, you want the best 16 teams, right? It sounds better just off the surface. Like, that's the idea. And I think it's more popular. even though I think people are being dumb about it and not thinking it through, that the SEC is going to end up, if it's that type of format, eventually getting like 7 or 8 teams in the thing. Like, I can't believe people are just nodding their head. In Big 12 country, too. I think the Big 12 is absolutely stupid for, like, getting in on the 5+11 thing and not seeing that they're going to get elbowed
Be held
out.
to one bid.
Yeah,
for the
it's
rest
absolutely dumb. It's a total ego thing that's based off, I don't like the fact that I'm the 2 in the 4-4-2-2-1 thing, and it's not understanding how it, I mean, it's just like not looking at the history of how this goes in these discussions on TV and all that. But anyway, what did Nebraska say?
Yeah, let's
get
after we just insulted the entire event, let's tell you about it. No, I will say this. I think the stuff that BC went and gathered, I mean, whether it was the Danielson interview that people should check out at Husker247.com right now, or just, you know, being there in the room for Matt Rhule. I mean, there was definitely some interesting things that were being said, and there's a lot of value in just having access. It's just a question of whether it needs to be at Mandalay Bay. So what did you give me your strongest takeaway from just Matt Rhule over the last 72 hours, but when you spent time with him on Tuesday?
Biggest takeaway is genuinely, okay, you could say this every year. The coach loves his football team, right? But I think, if to frame it this way, I think that Nebraska believes they have as few of question marks as a lot of the top teams we're talking about. Like, if you look across the league, you know, Penn State seems like they're pretty stacked, but you kind of go through the order, and even teams 2, 3, 4, definitely when you get to like teams 4, everybody's got like a couple question marks where you're like, I'm not quite sure about that position group or this thing within their roster. And I felt that quiet confidence in Nebraska was legit this year, that like Rhule believing we have as few questions as anybody, why not us, without just saying it like that. If you kind of go through the quotes and listen to them, that's what I got, is that they think they have as much opportunity and the door is open as anybody. And it wasn't said, like I said, explicitly like that. It was just when you piece everything together from all the players and Rhule, that's kind of what you came away with.
Bruntz, any takeaway from you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the spring training thing with baseball, where everybody's in the best shape of their lives. They're excited to go. But I mean, even in the spring, it felt like there was like quiet confidence over there that things were in a good spot relative to what they have been the first 2 years. And I think it was good to see Nebraska not kind of shying away from a little bit of expectation. Like, I think that's a healthy thing for a program in year 3 to be like, okay, you know, you've built for 2 years, just apart from the Matt Rhule year 3 thing. Like, it's time to start winning some football games on the field when it matters. And I think that was good to hear. You know, it was, we can get into it a little bit more too with Dylan, but I was surprised, maybe not surprised, but I was thinking a lot about his comments on the defensive line, because I think that's one of the 2 position groups that's going to get a lot of attention during fall camp. He expressed confidence there. He's expressed a lot of confidence that regardless of personnel, that's an area where they should be good. Like, that's just historically where his teams have been pretty solid. But that, for me, more than any, is kind of a wait and see type endeavor as we get into the season. Because I think in its totality, I think there's potential there, but I need to see it on the field first before I buy in that they're not going to take a step back from, you know, having lost Ty and Nash and Jamari Butler and all the guys that moved on.
One of the comments that Rhule made that I appreciated was he talked about the Nebraska lost some close games last year, but when he went back and looked, it was just a product of them not being good enough. I think in the past, we've sort of swaddled ourselves with the idea that Nebraska has been right there in all these contests and that they clearly could have a bunch more wins without really dissecting the sort of core concept of they just continue to make self-inflicted mistakes. And we dive into all of that too, but it was good to hear the coach sort of say that. And Dylan Raiola kind of backed it up in his own words when he talked about needing the accountability to sort of confront those moments, and that he will remember what it was like sitting on the sidelines at Black Friday after the fumble, allowing Iowa to sneak out with another win. I think it's important, when Rhule said there's pain that you can learn from, and it's sort of a grumbling line for the fan base because there's been too much pain, and they, know very well what that feels like. But it does, for a team that's sort of building upon itself and the incremental nature that he wants it to be, that does feel like a big thing for them to take on. And so if there is that kind of ownership and accountability, and they are able to learn from the loss against Iowa, and he said that it translated in the bowl game against Boston College, if they can actually carry that over, if that can be part of their day, then we should see that at some point early in the season when they have this sort of adrenaline rush close and late game, that they are able to put it away, that they do make the right plays, that they do have a guy step up and make a big catch, or Dylan makes the accurate throw and the right read, or what have you. I mean, and so I'm hoping we see that early in the season. I thought it was good for them to sort of acknowledge it. I want to go back to Bruntz's point on the defensive line. We've written about it here recently. We've talked about this defensive line. When you really kind of pick apart the pieces, there's not a lot of experience there, but there are a lot of guys that Nebraska has entrusted early in their careers. You look at Cam Lenhart, Riley Van Poppel, Keona Davis, all played as freshmen. None of them redshirted their freshman year. And so there's something to that makes me wonder if they feel like a lot of these guys are ready to kind of, break out now that they're going to have ample opportunity. Bruntz, I just want to give you a little extra time to kind of expand on that defensive line. And I know that you said you need to see it as it happens, but if this were to work well for Nebraska, why do you think that's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to see it because it's like you said, it's an inexperienced group. It's an intriguing group, though. I mean, I think there's
a lot of upside.
There's a lot of high ceiling guys there. They added too. I mean, Jalen George is a guy that I think you have to pay attention to this season. Gabe Moore out of Mississippi State is another guy that, I mean, at least is a potential factor in that conversation that's new to the game. You've got a former 5-star in Williams Winery that you're adding to the mix. And, I think if it's going to work, I think you're going to need guys to make sizable gains from where they've been in the past. Cam Lenhart is one that has to do that, I think. He in some ways was kind of lost in the shuffle last year, I think, for the most part, with everybody else. But it's his third year in the program. It's his time to be counted on. And I think the other guy is Keona Davis. I mean, you need one of those two guys to be able to give you a little bit of a pass rush where you're not having to dedicate more blitzers and pass rushers. And I think if you're going to have success with that group, it's going to be having a very strong top group and also a second group that's not too far away from where the starters are. And I think that's been part of the problem in the past, is that they've leaned a lot on those frontline guys and maybe, not had as much confidence in that second group, or, had guys playing close to that same level as maybe you'd like. So, Elijah Judy's another one. It feels like he's probably the X factor in that whole position group with making that work. So there's kind of a lot to digest there, but it's going to be the strength of the depth there. And I need to see it because so many of those guys are so new and haven't really had to have the types of roles that they're going to have this season.
It's like Bruntz is inside my brain. I already had keyed up a question to ask BC who he thinks would be the X factor along the defensive line, anticipating it would probably lead to an Elijah Judy discussion. So we'll just remove that question entirely. What's your confidence level that a guy like Elijah Judy, who's been here for a couple seasons, and we know the staff has talked about him, in sort of he's been a wild card, or that he's on the move. I think they think there's potential there. What is your confidence that Elijah Judy can be a net positive for Nebraska in the middle of that defensive line this year?
It's bolstered by that he's in the best shape of his life. When he arrived the first year, 23,
got that dad strength now.
Yeah, he was plus 300 pounds, but it wasn't a good 300 plus. And then he went down actually to like 270. And now I think he's up close to 300, but it's like stout. Like it's like, how, how you want it to be. So I think that's my best, like if you're to give a substantive answer about like why it could be, that would be it. When Bruntz was talking, I was thinking we kind of always name the same like 4 or 5 guys. There's like sort of these other fringe guys I'm curious about, like a Sualafotu and Mason Goldman, Jordan Ochoa is probably more of a jack, but like somebody like that, like do we hear something from him this camp? And I think when you talk about the D line and why Rhule and the coaches are actually quietly confident in it, is they believe, I think they have a lot of different chess pieces that they can do variations of things. And you kind of count the jacks into that with McCullough, with Willis McGahee, who we're all excited about. And if like McGahee and McCullough, for instance, are really good, and that's possible, I think that could really happen. That changes everything. And then if Williams-Nwaneri is like just solid, like you start to see it, like maybe it's not that breakout year yet, but you start to see, okay, he's working toward that. If you kind of get like a few of those things happening at the same time, and there's like 6 or 7 different things we could list off, like if this happened, if that happened, well, let's say like 3 or 4 of the 7 happen, then you're probably doing all right. And I think that's maybe where the confidence is. You've got options, is what I'm saying.
I'm glad you mentioned Jordan Ochoa, because I think there's a world where he can give you the production that James Williams was giving you, in previous seasons. I think he has some real pass rusher upside. I think they like him, based on what we've heard and how I heard spring was going. Whether that opportunity is going to be there for enough snaps or not, I don't know. But he's someone, if you're looking for kind of like a deep cut, he's someone that I would sprinkle a little bit of money on as having a bigger impact than what we might normally think here on July 25th. Again, not any sort of star by any means, but I think he could be a rotational defensive player for him for sure this season in Jordan Ochoa. So that's along the defensive line. I know we also kind of wanted to dive into another sort of uncertain area on this roster, and that's at running back, where we now know officially Isaiah Mosey has made the move over to running back. Nebraska will have Emmett Johnson. And then after that, it is a whole lot of question marks, whether it's Quentin Ives, Mekhi Nelson, Jamarian Parker, Connor Book now, Isaiah Mosey, Kenneth Williams way back there in this group as well. Bruntz, the running back group, you said with the defensive line, you're going to have to wait and see how that kind of looks and plays out. I have to imagine it's the same for everything that isn't Emmett Johnson. And even Emmett Johnson, we have to see if he can sustain the sort of workload that he had at the end of last season over 12 games this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of unknowns there. And what's interesting too, I mean, when you kind of start, like, I think with running backs, it's kind of natural to say, like, okay, you pigeonhole guys and roles. Like, okay, Emmett's our starter. Quentin Ives is probably the bigger back. You've got
short yardage
guys. It feels like the rest of the guys in that group that are a little bit further down the depth chart kind of do similar things to Emmett Johnson. Like in my mind, Mekhi Nelson is very similar to Emmett Johnson and what his skill set is. There's probably a difference there, but I mean, in my very simple mind, that's how I do it. And Parker, I mean, does he factor in this? I like, are those freshmen and Connor Booth, are they ready? I don't know. Mosey making the move over there and Matt Rhule they're expressing a fair amount of confidence in what he can be there and what he did in high school. That's interesting to me. I think his skill set probably fits what Dana Holgerson's looking for at a running back with his ability to catch out of the backfield. So I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty strong entrant into the field of down depth chart running backs. They're going to need 3 or 4. So, somebody's going to have to emerge. Do you guys even think that we'll have a good idea of where things stand in the middle of September? Like, it feels like something that's probably going to bleed over into the start of the season just to see how guys perform.
There hasn't been a year in the last, 4 or 5 where we haven't said that about running back. I mean, it's been sort of upheaval all throughout the rest of the season. Emmett Johnson emerged in 2023 because of injuries. Emmett Johnson emerged again in 2024 because of ineffectiveness or need for something else, or because Ramir Johnson wasn't completely able to go for you. In 2021 and 2022, you had different injuries or different guys that were having to play in different roles. I just think at running back, whoever starts the season is by no means guaranteed to be the guy, and it hasn't been recently for Nebraska. I mean, I think Dedrick Mills is one of the few that started a year and finished a year as kind of your bell cow or your number one option. So since then, it's been a lot of guys that have come from further back in the depth chart. So I think they're absolutely going to need to see a Mekhi Nelson or Isaiah Mosey, Jamarian Parker, Connor Booth step into a role, and then for this team to be the best version of itself. The Quentin Ives that they talk about needs to be the Quentin Ives that shows up on the football field, because they believe in him a lot, but we haven't seen anything that's justified that. And it wasn't there in the recruiting profile. It wasn't there, so it's got to show up on the field, or it's effectively 3 years of a guy that hasn't provided a lot for you that you really believed in. And there's probably not going to be a fourth year if Quentin Ives isn't something in 2025. So it's I think it's a really sort of fascinating time for EJ Barthel to kind of figure out what this looks like. And Nebraska chose not to really heavily pursue a running back. Shamar Brown was an option, and I think if they would have taken a different path early on, they might have ended up with them. But for better or worse, it's Emmett Johnson and a collection of question marks. And even we talk about him like he's a finished product. Even he's a bit of a question mark, right, BC?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's never been this guy where he's number one going into it. So you have to see how he responds. I do think there's a confidence with like how Emmett just like handled those last 4 games with Holgorsen, and he was so natural, so natural at catching passes too out of the backfield, and you just saw that okay, that can work. So I do feel pretty confident about him. After that, I'm like all you guys. It's like we'll wait and see, and I think it's going to take some games to see who actually produces. It is kind of funny for like I'm interested in Quentin Ives, like how he counter punches this fall camp, because he actually has had, from all accounts, a good off season. And I kind of even go back to like December before the Pinstripe Bowl. Like Dana Holgorsen was like 28 showing up, like he liked him a lot, and then. Actually, on the record, we left spring with coaches saying like he was the number 2 guy. Like that's actually in the quotes that we put out there. And it's funny, he kind of got summer conversationed out of that position by like everybody, media and fans. Cause like, oh, we got the Mosey story now. Mekhi Nelson, I think we're all really interested in, but it humors me a little bit. Probably not humorous to Quentin Ives that he kind of had worked himself where he was said to be the second guy actually in April, and now everybody is like no, but I think that's the way it is. You got to go like show it actually, like at Arrowhead, you got to go do something in that game where it's like, okay, yeah, you are number 2, and then you roll with it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Anything else for media day? Do we want to we were sort of talking before we started the podcast, Dylan Raiola presented well, I thought, at media days, and he has the sort of he seemed very calm, collected, which it's media days. It shouldn't be, stressful. But he just carries himself like someone that seemingly has played a lot more than 13 games, but also doesn't come across as, a prima donna or anything else. I was struck by how he was answering some of the questions, the different types of questions that he was getting. I mean, this is a guy that really has huge star power for Nebraska should everything go the way they hope in 2025. What was your sort of thoughts, BC, from just being there in the room, listening to him talk, and then going back through that audio?
It's worth reminding yourself sometimes, because you can lose sight of it with all the get so inside the forest, you don't see it then, that his story is a great story. I know there's perks. We all know he's got big perks that come with the job of being Nebraska's quarterback. So we understand that. But it really hit me when, and this is not a knock on anybody who's asking questions. People got to do what they got to do. But he got like 2 or 3 Ohio State questions in a row, like about a commitment that's like 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah, I was going to write about that, and then you kind of jumped into it in your column, and it was a really sort of fascinating 3 minutes of that audio.
And I understand, like, every job in the country has its pressure. If you're the Ohio State QB, if you lose one game, you suck, like you're for that week. It's like, that's the critique about it. So that position carries its own weight. But as he was answering those questions very respectfully, and I thought in a good manner he presented himself, I was like, I love this story of the guy who, let's go back to just the base one, who came back to his dad's alma mater, a program that hadn't been to a bowl game in like 6-7 years. And it's like, we're going to try to build this thing up to be that program where Nebraska's quarterbacks of the future aren't getting questions like that anymore. It's like Nebraska's near the top. They were in the college football playoff. And there's people who can roll their eyes at whether that's going to happen or not, but he believes that can happen. He presented that well. And it's a cool story of like someone betting on himself that like I can help this program get elite with my talents, and also I think I can bring in the other talents we need to do that. He sort of has with like Dane Key and Isaiah Hunter, and like he's been appealing in that way. And he didn't really get asked about it, but like there's preseason stuff that has him as like 40th ranked quarterback in the country. Like the Athletic had him tier 4 out of 8 tiers, and he's got to go prove he's not that and go do it and play at a higher level than last year. But it's pretty fascinating for a guy of his name and how much he was sort of talked about last year outside of our bubble. I think there's sort of this thought like he's down a notch or two from some of these other guys who have played less snaps. So it's a really just great individual storyline, as good as any we've had from a just a personal basis, what's going on over there.
It's always incredible how great people are until they fail. And when you look at these lists and it's like you have quarterbacks that have never taken a snap before and they're ranked higher than Dylan Raiola, it's sort of mind-blowing to me. Bruntz, what did you get a chance to go through any Raiola audio, or did you read any of the kind of the stories that came out of it? Do you have any thoughts on him and sort of where he's at heading into this fall camp?
Yeah, I was going back to like what Andrew Ivins said when he was up here in June about how, from an outsider perspective and being in Lincoln and just seeing, just how he is and how much of the face of the program he is. I mean, it's that he's the face of the program, but to go from kind of just being a freshman quarterback last year, kind of trying to find his way, to now, okay, you're 13 games into your college career. I would argue probably one of the bigger quarterback names in the Big Ten, despite what the lists say. That there's been a big shift there, and I think Nebraska, their ceiling is in large part determined by how high Dylan Raiola's ceiling is this year. Like if he comes out and makes a big jump as a sophomore and gets those touchdown and interception numbers further apart than what they have been, I think Nebraska can have a really good year in spite of whatever else needs to get better on this roster. So I don't know. I thought he handled himself well. I thought, he handled all sorts of questions. I mean, BC mentioned the Ohio State stuff. He got a lot of Mahomes questions, as you'd kind of expect in that setting. But I thought he handled himself really well, and I think it's pretty obvious that he has the respect of his teammates as well. And, I think guys are going to follow him a little bit more this year than they were a year ago, because I think last year they followed him because he's the quarterback, and you have to follow the quarterback. I think this year, I mean, he is by far the name and the face of that program.
You wrote about, well, sorry, Bruntz, you wrote about the Mahomes thing, what he said. I thought he did really well with that too, because let's face it, that's like one of the biggest storylines. Like everybody makes fun of him for being Mahomes Jr. and all this stuff. And I actually liked his answer when you get to it. It's sort of an innocent thing. It's kind of a guy who like idolizes a really great player and like would have his poster on his wall sort of deal and wants to be like him, and I thought he kind of provided that. I don't think people are going to necessarily listen to what he said, and they'll continue if he has a bad game, but I liked how he answered it.
Well, and the thing is too, is it would be one thing if he like just had Mahomes' posters on his wall and like, styled his hair in the same way, but it's like he can text Patrick Mahomes and get a text back. Like he likened it to the Kobe Bryant Michael Jordan relationship.
That's exactly what it is.
And I thought that was a pretty good thing. So I don't know, like I get it. And I saw another thing where they did a bit where it was like a shadow and it was like, is this you or is this Patrick Mahomes? And I kind of chuckled at it, but he handled it really well. I mean, like he just, he rolls his eyes a little bit at it, plays along. And like I said, I mean, it would be one thing if like Patrick Mahomes had no idea who he was. He's like a guy showing up at a pickup game in like a full Michael Jordan jersey or something like that. But like they work out with the same quarterback coach. Like they're known to one another. So I don't know. It like I give him a lot of respect for handling those questions with the kind of chillness that he does.
Here's a question. How do you guys feel about Matt Rhule and Dylan having a different opinion on the sorry, I almost lost my microphone there. Having a different opinion on what to do when you're down by 15. Do you kick the extra point? Do you go for 2? What's your answer on that? What's the Husker247 brain hive view on what you do down 15 and you score a touchdown?
So they cut it to 9. I didn't even see what they said.
Yeah, you cut it to 9. So obviously your options, you go for 1, you go for 2. I'm pretty staunchly and you go for 2, so you know exactly if you need 2 possessions or 1 possession. I don't see the value in kicking the extra point. You're still down, effectively a touchdown and the 2-point conversion. If you're going to lose, you're going to lose either way, whether you get it then or you don't get it then. So,
What do you say, Bruntz?
I'll go for 2. I think I want my chances. I want to know what's in front of me. I think you laid it out pretty well though, Schaefer. I would go for 2.
I actually like the scenario. I mean, where if you're down 14,
yeah,
I actually
that's become a big thing now in the NFL.
I mean, I've actually been a fan of that because I think the numbers can work in your way, and some people scoff at that when a team does it and it fails. But yeah, I think I would go for the 2 to try to get to 7. I don't feel as strongly about that one, though. I understand the reasoning for just like, okay, get it to 8, and at least your sideline is still like, okay, we're just 1 score away. I always, though, kind of look at it when you're down 8, like it's still like, man, this has to go right, and then that has to go right. Like it still feels like a big mountain to me whenever your squad is in that situation.
I've never understood the way that people argue, you don't want to go for 2 now, you want to go for 2 at the end of the game. You have to get it either way. Like, what's the difference of getting it, your team still then, if you don't get it and you're down 9, you still have to play defense. You still have to get stops. Like, it's the idea your team's just going to quit at that point. And do you have a better avenue towards winning if you kick the extra point? I don't think that you do. So, to me, I would much rather know the amount of possessions you need with the time of game left. And I'm also someone that feels like if you're down 8 early in the 4th quarter or even in the second half, I just go tie the game up when you have the opportunity to tie the game up. Like I don't really subscribe to the chasing points thing.
Whether it's real or not, I also prefer a little the perception of momentum as well.
Yeah,
like I kind of like that. So I don't care what the card says. I'm going for 2.
Was it the UCLA game? John Hull actually missed the extra point. This was a little different because it kept them behind 7 instead of just 6. And when he missed that extra point, I felt like that was such a letdown. Like it was an underplayed letdown of that game. Like obviously you can tie it with just a touchdown and go to overtime, but Nebraska was actually driving, remember, to like the 35. And think about the scene if it's only a 6-point game and it's like, okay, they win it here.
Yep.
If they score, it's that's
you get the bowl eligibility with your backup quarterback, and
that stuff's so interesting. Like how that a point here or there can like in affect everybody in such a way. But what did Raiola and Rhule say to who answered which way?
So Raiola said you kick the extra point, you go for 2 at the end of it. Rhule said he wants to know how many possession he needs with the time left, so he'd go for 2.
Mm-hmm.
The video guy was basically like, "Hey, I wanted to let you know your quarterback said this." And Rhule walking off that's fine. He's not the one that makes that decision. So
is the subtext of the decision also, and especially given Nebraska's issues last year, which is easier, the extra point or going for 2? Like, it's probably about the same at that point, right?
Well, shoot, Nebraska with their Dante Dowdell plunge play going for 2 is probably the safer.
Yeah.
And then you go back to that awful possession against Ohio State where they couldn't score inside the 5-yard line. So,
or
I was going to
say
the
bowl game where you couldn't you got that screwed up.
Yeah, I was going to go back to what BC was saying with the UCLA game. If you guys really want to punish yourselves, put on the second half of that UCLA game and watch that to the end, because that is a plodding, awful second half of football, starting with that pick 6 that never should have happened with Fedoni running wide open. And then the Nebraska had the ball for like the entirety of the fourth quarter in UCLA's territory and only walked away with 6 points from it. Like it is brutal to watch that. Like that was, they definitely had to make a change following that. And they definitely did, from Satterfield to Holgorsen. All right. Any final thoughts we want to get in from media days or anything else? Fall camp starts next Monday. We'll have the ability to put eyes on practice on Monday, and I think Saturday next week there's the open practice that's happening in the evening, and then there'll be a bunch of people talking. I mean, we got obviously Raiola and Lutovsky and Deshaun Singleton, but they'll have, I think, probably 10 different people probably over the next week that we'll be able to hear from in terms of players.
Yeah, Monday will be a big day. There's good access, so people can come to the site. There'll be a lot of stuff with the first day of camp, but the whole week, and that's one thing I applaud them. There's always, compared with some other places, there is good access throughout.
Yeah.
And they know how attached this fan base is to this team and the storylines. And one thing real quick, I mean, Rhule said it. He said, "I never tell my guys what to say. I never tell them, don't say this." Occasionally, if a guy says something real stupid, we'll bring it up. But like Deshaun Singleton asked him the night before the media days, like, "Is there something we're not supposed to say or whatever?" And he's like, "No, just go say what you got to get off your chest," basically. So I do appreciate that.
Bruntz, anything you want to add?
No, we're finally fall camps here. I'm excited.
Yeah, we didn't have a really fruitful watch list season, did we? It felt like a pretty slow July in terms of all the different awards. Is Nebraska not involved for many of these now?
Did it even happen? Like
I didn't see them.
Yeah. Did they move
like
watch list season?
I don't know, maybe it's going to start now this week or something. Normally do we miss them all?
No. You better buckle up, Buttercup.
Oh yeah,
it's coming down the pike here really quick.
Okay, all right.
They're all coming. Groza and Thorpe are coming this way.
They're going to be flowing starting Monday. Maxwell's on Monday. Nagurski, Outland the next
Heinrich
day.
Harburg, semifinalists for the Mackey.
Wednesday is the Butkus and the Paycom Jim Thorpe Award.
I love how scheduled everything is now with college football's off season. We got to have a special day for when the watch list comes out.
Yep, Lou Groza, the Groza and the guy. That's on Friday. So
feel pretty confident Nebraska's not going to be involved in the Groza or the guy.
They had every one of those trophies in the hallway there, and I gave thought to if I took a picture like next to each one and tweeted like a string. There was like 15 trophies, and you just did it 15 in a row. It was bad humor, but it's the sort of thing that I would think is funny if someone did it.
I saw
it would have been a really nice TikTok video. The Big Ten could have made something out of that.
Yeah. The Heisman was right
show
there.
all of those, and then you have the national championship, and it's like, yeah, this doesn't leave here either. And then boom.
They have the mascots there. They got the mascots out in Vegas.
I didn't see the mascot. See, that's maybe what had pissed off James
Franklin. Could you imagine going to a roulette table or a blackjack table, and you're sitting next to Purdue Pete, and you're having to decide if you want to double down against the dealer's 6?
I'm shocked that they didn't have the Oregon Duck walking around a casino. I feel like that. I mean,
they missed out.
They brought the Duck to Lincoln. Vegas doesn't seem like that's too far.
If you have
Maybe
the duck,
duck that Lawson was on Fremont Street.
he's just got like red eyes, like reeking of cigarette smoke.
Oh no, walking out of Binion's.
Yep. With a small boy of Foster's oil can.
Maybe they should go back. Maybe they should go back to Vegas. They just got to do it right. They got to do what the stuff we're talking about here.
Put us in charge. That's how I feel about a lot of things. Put Husker247 in charge. We'll go for 2. That's our new tagline. Husker247, we'll go for 2. That's where we're at. All right, guys. We appreciate everyone joining us here. Be sure to check out all the coverage from Husker247.com on Big Ten Media Days. And, of course, there's going to be plenty of coverage starting next week with fall camp. And there's going to be coverage leading up to it. There's going to be analysis of what we're hearing, what we're seeing. There's going to be video. There's going to be audio. We got it all at Husker247.com. And if you're like, hey, do they do anything besides football? We do. Did you want a little basketball recruiting? Nebraska just picked up a recruit.
The good
one. The 2026 class. And BC wrote about him, talked to him, and we've got that on the site as well. There'll be some more football recruiting as we kind of turn the page towards 2027, while keeping an eye on the guys that Nebraska will have the spatula out for here as they look to close their 2026 class. So all of that can be found at Husker247.com. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love a like or a subscribe there. If you are listening, whatever podcast you can subscribe to, you can have it delivered to you directly. Appreciate your patronage. For Brian Christopherson, Michael Bruntz, I'm Mike Schaefer. We're Husker247. We'll catch you next time.